Well, November 2nd, you had a lot of things to discuss. Everything from the Florida incident, where you had the officers that basically were fired for lack of action and how they didn't react to an active shooter situation with a large loss of life. The other issue with this is that Alice became a little more prevalent in training across the country without active shooters. You're looking at alert, lockdown, inform, count, and encounter, and evacuate. And the big thing is with Alice is the fact that today, if we let the active shooter play the game that they want to play, then more loss of life is more prevalent. The biggest thing I see out of all this is the fact that when I looked at the sergeant's uh, program, I mean, he's bringing out some good points on how they're training and why they're training that way. And again, once again, you're looking at plain language. Uh, let's move on to something else that's a little more dear to my heart. While I'm not law enforcement, but the fire is. And one of the things I look at is that the fire in England, the Greenfield fire, there's a lot of calamity here. The lack of the building code and the building that was always in suspect is now a major incident with large loss of life. And the London Fire Brigade takes a hit on this. But actually, the city needs to take a hit on it as well because they allowed this structure to be built and allowed to exert certain fire codes that basically, if they were in place, they wouldn't have had combustible materials that would have accentuated the fire as fast as it did. When you move back to all this, and then you start looking at the tower in Canada, you have to look at fire protections that are put into these buildings. And quite frankly, when you start looking at these massive designs, and go to Dubai, look at the buildings there. Fire protection systems are probably the most uh, key instrument in any of these buildings. And think about your own community. How many buildings do you have in your community that are actively and adequately protected? So you'll find that as a cornerstone in your research. The Pentagon, an old building, how many times do you think that's been remodeled for national security and for military secrets and everything else? But yet we still had a problem. We had a large part of the building that was hit from the plane crash from 9/11. As you move forward on this, start putting in perspective the NIMS program. The National Incident Management System is there for a reason. Every day, the fire department and the police department respond to type 4 and 5 incidents. But once you get up to 3, 2, and 1, now you have to come into some sort of plain term of language. And that's where NIMS comes in. The forms, the outlay of the program, and how we train. And then the fact that you go through the 100, 200, 300, and 400 training on NIMS is really important. And communities now know that that's out there and that it should be in place and it should be reinforced. And all the uh, operational plans that they have, including elected officials. So I bring back everything back to a center when I'm saying when you have an active shooter on a large scale incident, the incident automatically grows past type 4 or 5. It goes into a 3, probably a 2. NIMS becomes the benchmark like terminology that you're going to need. The other part of this thing is that now we have an overlapping thing with Alice, with the building. We're training people to do one thing, we're doing the other. Same thing on fire protection. We're doing one thing, and the other thing you'll find more than anything else, is that when we look at structures today, how are we reinforcing them for protection from law enforcement standpoint and also from a fire standpoint. And with being in the dynamic that they are in England, where you had two types of cultures. You have people that have nothing, homeless, and then you have the well-to-do. When you have those two types of situations together, there has to be common ground. And the problem is, more than likely, those that have not had anything, I mean, those that are homeless, are more in need than people realize. So keep all this in mind when you're looking at these programs and how they interface. Thank you.